Welcome to this edition of The Bigger Game. Our guest today is Ron Cox, husband, father, and CEO and co-founder of RC Development Solutions. Hey, Ron, thanks for being here today, man.
Hey, thank you for the invite. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're running around doing 100 million things, and appreciate you giving us a few minutes of your time. Appreciate that.
You bet.
Yeah, so we were talking about the bigger game earlier. What does the bigger game mean to you?
Bigger game for me is actually, it's just grounded in my purpose, cause, and passion. So, bigger game is service to others. I think that's why I was placed on earth. Um, haven't always been on the right path, learned some valuable lessons from my own experiences, most of which were brought on by myself, not by others. But we could go deep into that. I don't know how much time you have.
Share with us one of those examples of where what you learned and kind of what happened and what you learned, and
I
take
think
us down that journey a little bit.
You bet. One of my biggest experiences was just the fact I was terrible at work-life balance. I always thought that you were going to be judged and graded and your success would be by your bank account. And so I lost track of the time on the wall. And so the clock really 8 to 5 drove me, and then it was past 5, and then I didn't know where to stop because I was a competitive person by nature and I really wanted to win. And so I would do whatever it took, and a lot of times it had to do with sacrificing those things that matter most, and that's your time with God, and that's your time with your family. And in my case, it was with my wife, and we had a child, and I was just going down the wrong path, and all of a sudden, it was in 1997. I can still remember. I got God smacked, as they say. Went to the hospital, routine checkup. I had been really tired, so I was ready to figure out what was going on. And I just assumed it was because I didn't sleep at night because I was working 3 jobs trying to make money. And then the doctor said, no, you have Wilson's disease. And so I went to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, and a team of doctors come in far smarter than me. And they said, I don't know how to tell you this, but let me introduce you to one of our team members. And it ended up being a grief counselor. And so my wife and I looked at each other and go, why do we need to talk to a grief counselor? What's going on? Well, that was just routine and part of the process when you get diagnosed with a terminal illness. And I said, terminal illness. And about that time, my wife hit the conference room table. She began a full-blown panic attack. So they gave us a few minutes, got some water, we talked it out. And I realized that this is more serious than any project I was working on or family that I was trying to dedicate my time to. And so the terminal illness for me was, okay, why and what's going on? And then through that process of finding out and dealing with it, Abizer, I had a come to Jesus conversation on the shores of Lake Superior. And I was up on the world's largest freshwater lake just outside of Grand Marais, Minnesota, and I sat on the banks of the shore and I just said, God, why me? Everybody I think always says, why me when you have a terminal illness? What did I do wrong? What could I have done different? And how long do I have? And I need to make this right. I had a young toddler child. My wife was pregnant. Um, it was the worst time. If there's ever a good time, probably not, but it was the worst time for me. And it really forced me to focus on my time. Where am I going to spend the remaining days of my life? What matters most? And I just finally said, God, if you will spare me, save me, give me that extended time that I've stole from my wife and child, then I'll dedicate my life to you. And you will always be first, and I'll always serve you first, and I'll always get to the end of the line, graciously and voluntarily. Um, and my life began to change, and it began to change. I spent days, weeks, months in surgery, rehab, transformation, everything, from where I laid my head at night to what I ate during the day to where I spent my time to rehabbing organs and body parts and just learning everything. I immersed myself in what is Wilson's disease and can I beat it. And my wife was my number one champion.
So, what do you attribute the shift in? Obviously, you gave your life over to God,
Yep.
and obviously that's the turning moment. Talk
Yep.
about your experience a little bit from before and after that moment. Like, take us down that part of the journey. Like, what did you know? What did you experience? How did you know you were getting better?
I knew I was getting better and my energy started coming back. My energy started coming back. My body, my shape, my style, all of that stuff really changed. And so, I went from not sleeping at night to sleeping better. I went from eating better. I went from being at a desk, being in this sedentary lifestyle, to grinding and being totally stressed out all the time, to saying, okay, let's have a list of things to do. Let's get those done. God, family, friendship. Oh gosh, I got to go to work. And so I put work down at the end. And sure enough, when God was first, having the daily meetings, starting my day off with my wife, having a program to say what matters most, organizing, prioritizing, just getting it together. It really helped. My wife, actually, one of the things she did too, I think, for my sanctity, is she said, you need to give back time. I've signed, of all things, looking back, it's kind of funny, but she said, I checked the box on our son's application. It said that you would volunteer at this youth organization. And I thought, okay, she's forcing me to spend time with my son. That's sad when I say that, but it was one of the best things she could have done, because I got more involved with him and I became a better father. And when I became a better father, things seemed to really fall in line for me as a business person.
So this shift was primarily what then? A shift in attitude,
Actually, yeah,
a shift in perspective.
there you
So
go.
you chose the priority went from work and the stress and all that to really taking a step back and letting God kind of drive the entire show, and you reset your priorities inside of His construction rather than your own construction. It seems like.
Yes, and I know you and I have spoke about this, but a lot of it had to do with first things first. You got to prioritize first things first, and as long as you conquer those things, you win the day, and everything else is irrelevant. There's less stress built up around that because you satisfied what matters most, and that's so stressful. In my case, it was God. We start our day in scripture and we end our day in prayer, spending time with my son, checking that box. I was forced to put together, and I'm an organized person, so I had a structure and agenda, and I managed it. And he and I became extremely close, and to this day, we're still close. And I use that same process with our unborn child. When he was born, what am I going to do? How am I going to do it? And everything else seems to take care of itself. And you sleep better. There's less stress and anxiety. You have a better relationship. My wife and I have been together. I think I told you, I met her when I was 18. She'll tell you that she helped me grow up, and I became a man and a better person because of her.
Hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. Um, I think that reprioritization of all of that, and then stepping into actually your purpose, right? Part of that is choosing your purpose and being very clear on what your purpose is. And
Yes.
so, being busy for the sake of being busy, right? There was someone, I forget the quote now, but it's something around, you know, it's not I don't worry about failing. I worry about succeeding at the wrong things. Right, right, right.
Yeah.
I forget how it said, but I think I paraphrased it, but I forget who said it. I just remember that when you were talking, it came back to me as it brings what you said all home, right? Like that's it, right?
Yeah.
You focus on what's important and get those things done. It's not worrying about failing; it's worrying about succeeding at the wrong things.
Yeah. You're right. You got a great memory, Abizer. The conversation I had was a personal conversation I had with one of the great Dr. Stephen Covey. He said, Ron, you ever worry about the fact you climb that ladder of success rung by rung by rung? You get to the top and you're so proud of yourself. You even pat yourself on the back because you're the first one there. And you look over the roof and you realize you're on the wrong building.
The wrong route. Yeah. Right. Right. How
Oh,
often do we do that?
all the time.
Yeah, it's the it's the choice, I think, is the blessing and the bane of being human. It is
Hmm.
such a blessing and a curse all at the same time, because we can choose whatever the heck we want, right? So
Yeah.
it's a accountability, I think, that when we look at it from the perspective you're looking at it, like God's grace, I think that it makes it a lot easier for us to make, at least for me, to make choices that are from a higher frequency, right?
Yes. Yes. You're exactly right. And my wife and I always talk to each other now, and this is a nice little easy test. But she always says, when you're sitting there side by side with God and you're at your own funeral, are you proud of your eulogy? Who gives your eulogy? In our case, I assume it would be my oldest son. And would you be proud of what he or she says about you? So that eulogy test, it's like, and there's a song out, there's a country music song, and I know a lot of people listen to the chorus and the words and this and that, but it's really, for me, the older I get, it seems like it's all around poetry. So I dive deep into the words and what are the meanings of the words? Is it somebody's real experience, real life, or is it just, hey, I think this would sell a lot of records, let's do it. But and I don't make any money off of this, but I listened to a song recently, Ebenezer. It was called "Standing Room Only," and it got my attention because I thought this was like a big event, and like, hey, it's a sports deal and people are applauding for you. It's not that at all. Standing Room Only was a Tim McGraw country music song, and it really talks about the procession at your funeral. There are so many people there, they're standing room only. And in there, he talks about your life is focused not on the clock on the wall or your bank account. So he says, clock on the wall or the dollar. Because if those are the two things, there's nobody that's going to be at your funeral. Your perception line will be very small and they'll get
It's
you
gonna be
in.
a bunch of wristwatches.
Yeah, well, they
Right.
won't even, they may not be there because they'll be at work.
Yeah.
You know what I
Right.
mean? Yeah,
Yeah.
I looked at that and I listened. I was like, holy cow, that's beautiful.
Yeah. I think that holding that purpose. You started this podcast in the word purpose, and you just brought it back home for us again. That is fantastic, right? That the end in mind, right? Stephen Covey, the standing room only at my funeral.
Yes,
Right? What choice do I make right now that happens on that day?
absolutely. If that's your resume as you're into life, what does it look like? Are you proud of that? Did you accomplish anything that is your legacy that you're proud of, that people would get up and tell God and country, this is who Ebenezer is, this is who Ron Cox is. And hopefully you're proud of that because it's up to you to create that.
Which roof are you on?
Hey, I've been in a lot of bad neighborhoods, I can tell you that. And I wondered how I got there. And it took years to get there. So it wasn't a one bad decision. It was a combination of what have I been doing?
Tell us another one. This is pretty fascinating. Tell us another one.
Some of the other things that you and I've talked about, just other than lead the life of example, and that is just, I think for me, in finding the people and surrounding yourself with the right people, one of the things I think you and I both agree on, you absolutely cannot be the smartest man in the room. If you're the smartest man, woman in the room, you got to get out of that room because they are not making you better. It's exhausting to be running as fast as you can, pulling as many things as you can, people or trash or baggage or whatever you're strapped with. Get out of there. It's easier to surround yourself with great people who you want to emulate, who you're proud of, who you do more listening than talking. Because I think it's proportionate to the way God created you. I don't want to get too much into my faith, but if you just do the math, it's simple. God gave you two ears and one mouth. That's how you should live your life. Listen. Quit talking. Listen. Two ears, one mouth. Use that in practice every day.
Someone I was at an event recently, and someone was talking. He was like, the same letters that spell listen spell the word silent. Like, oh, look at that.
That's right.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to that. And what does Simon say? Right, be the last to speak. Right.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think that's also key. Okay? To let everybody else speak, let them have their ability to be heard. That generosity of listening to them and getting their input, and letting them have the experience of making that contribution. And then at the
Absolutely.
end, say whatever there is to be said around bring it all home for everybody who was in the room. I think
Yes.
that's a great skill, and it takes some purpose to
I
be
could.
able to do that.
Oh, I'll tell you another fascinating story. You were asking me, man. Now you got me. I'm going to dive deep, but some of the stuff that I've actually learned about from the listening skill and just using it and implementing it, I've learned more from younger people that if you just take the time to listen, they are so creative, especially the ones who are super, super smart and they'll sit there and they've tried other things and they ask a lot of input, but more importantly, you've got to listen to them. I've used that tool on my work teams and my work groups. And you and I talked about growing an organization, and we 10 times our growth, our organization. And a couple of the things that I thought were important, I learned along the way, I learned from young people. One of the things I'll tell you about is in 2018, I was inducted in the Hall of Fame as a coach. And at that conversation and speech, they asked me one of the things that made me successful. The teams I worked with back then were successful. Then they went on and won 3 national championships. And I learned one time in a session, I could not get people to pay attention, to listen, and to apply what I was trying to teach. And so I sat back, I was extremely frustrated, and one young man stepped up and he said, "This is what we have to do." And I noticed the work group, the team, if you will, around him was listening, and they really respected the person, the peer, the person on the team that was in the trench, that was grinding. It wasn't a coach with a title and all of this. It was one of their own. And I watched and I just let them, and then they got promoted to a captain, and then all of a sudden they were leading each other. My sessions, my agenda, my practice became less important to me, listening and learning from them young men, teach each other, coach each other, build each other, get that trust. They were the ones in the battle. They were the ones that were going to be successful. And I sat back and I finally realized as a coach, you gotta let your teams do what they do with some oversight, some rules. There's things that apply, like you don't have an endless amount of money or time. So within this amount of money and this amount of time, what's the best outcome we can hope for? Because you're going to be responsible for that. And next thing you know, 20 years later, I'm being inducted in the Hall of Fame. And it ain't be, I don't think it's because of anything I did. I think it's because I was smart enough to listen and let those players or those employees do what they do, learn from each other, help each other, create a culture that fosters communication and trustworthiness, and let them thrive.
Yeah, I think, wow, a lot of nuggets there, right? If I can't do that with the team I have, I really need to go back and look at that team and determine whether I got the right team or not. Right?
Yes,
So many people overcompensate and step in, or start dictating terms or whatever. They take over in one form or another, right? And that's to compensate for lack of a team that actually they can trust. I think, right? So I think
yes,
that right there is huge, to have the right team, or then change the team. But
ab-
stepping
ab-
in should be like the last and maybe even never thing to do, right? I think that's amazing. Yeah, what a
yes,
lesson.
yes,
Yeah, I think that that the microcosm of a sports team, and what you talked about, right? I think is essential, and I think has perhaps led to a lot of has added to your ability to be successful in business as well. Just noticing how that team came together and those experiences. How many times do we look at our lives and think that we had all this, trauma or difficult times or whatever word we put to it? And not thinking of anybody or anything, right? We all have our challenges and we all have our mountains to climb. And how often do we look at those as difficult situations versus a blessing or a gift? You mentioned God, right? God's the God that I worship is benevolent and all knowing. And so if he's all knowing, he's benevolent, then all those challenges that he put in front of me are gifts, right? And it's up to me to, again, we can make a choice, right? I get to choose that it's a gift, or I get to choose that it's, something ridiculous or, painful or whatever word I put to it. It's my choice to do that. And then if I choose a blessing, then I can give that away to others. I can use it to further humanity, make that difference that I want to make before my time comes up, right? Like kind of like you have with the organizations you've created and the teams you've put together. That's fabulous. Thanks, Ron, for sharing that.
You bet. Again, I think also, as you and I have discussed previously, I think the teams and their success or failures, you have to take responsibility for that as well. But my responsibility is the fact that you got to try. It's like prevention versus loss, right? It's what you put in on the prevention side to build a better team and to incorporate and to give them the voice and to be. I think you have to be mature enough to say, just because I've experienced it differently, I know there's a new way of doing things. There's a better process. There's a better technology. People that are out there are better at what I used to do than I am. And be humble. Be humble and be a change agent. Be able to embrace that and don't fight that. And I think people will see that in you and they will want to gravitate towards you. And the more you embrace that, the greater ideas you'll give them. Or they'll give you the better ideas, because you've got a blank canvas and you're going to learn along with them. But you got to create that empowerment mentality so people feel empowered. You know, again, it all comes back to the way you treat people and the way people understand and respect you. I think will drive your success.
And the way and how people feel around me, right? I think that's the biggest thing. People, if they like themselves when they're around me, right? I think that's the test, and that goes back to standing room only. So it all comes back to the same purpose that you created at the beginning of this podcast. The
Yeah.
purpose, right? I
Oh,
build that team around that same purpose, right? When I'm gone, they're gonna miss the heck out of me, right?
what a great feeling,
If we're
huh?
doing that, if I can do that, then I think I've won. That's not even about dollars and cents. I think that follows, right? That's a given once that team is humming and functioning.
I think
So
you just defined
how
success.
about the energy, right, Ron?
Yeah, I think you just defined success. At
Yeah,
least that's how I would define it.
yeah, right. That's a
Yes.
beautiful thing. What you got anything else up your sleeve there, Ron? You want to share with us?
No, I told you earlier, we have a book coming out that's going to be published here in the end of 2025. It's called Unbroken, and it's from bully to boardroom. And what we hope is that it actually inspires people to tell their story, but don't be discouraged along the way. I promise you, you're not alone. I promise you, other people have dealt with some of the same obstacles that you've had to deal with. But tell your story. Hopefully, it'll inspire others to tell their stories. I think some of the greatest healing and growth occurs when you tell the story. You put something in writing. It's just like, goals. It's something to keep them inside. But once you verbalize them, it takes it to the next level. But once you write them down, you got to perform. You got to get it done. And so writing that story has really inspired me to share it with others and to encourage and help other people to say, hey, I'm here. contact me. I want to help you. I want to let you know you're not alone on your journey. I want to let you know that, I failed. And because of those failures, I am who I
Yeah,
am
what a
today.
great way to find humility.
Yeah, don't be embarrassed by it. Embrace it. It'll make
Yeah,
you
and
better.
what a great way to bring.
Yeah, I agree.
What a great way to. I'm sorry. What a great way to like step into humility and really make it a basis for living, right? By sharing that story.
Yes.
And how many times do it? Your last comment here reminds me of how often do I run from the pain, right? It's like pulling a band-aid. I spend an hour pulling off a band-aid, one broken hair at a time, right? And it hurts like hell. But if I just pull it off in 1 second and just be with the pain for a split second or however long it is, it's nothing and it's over, right? And then I
Right.
and then I and then I run and I run and I try to hide it from you. I hide it from myself. Although you can see it and I can see it, right? The brokenness is so visible to you and to me. Yet I'm acting like nothing's there, and you're looking at me going, "Boy, something ain't right here, right?"
Yep.
So I think you just hit the hammer on the head. That humility to like share your story is huge, and I think that talking about accelerating growth and development, and then making the difference at the same time, purpose and standing remotely, all rolls back to that again.
There you go. I love it.
Someone standing around, yeah, that he did that, and this was his challenge, and it helped me because I did X, Y, and Z. I mean, what more do you want? What
Oh,
more do I want?
well, there's two different paths. You just said it. You go down the road of disguising it, or you go down the road of dealing with it. And I'd rather deal with it because disguising it, it'll eventually get you.
Yeah, well, you can't run from it. It's you. It's me anyway. Right? Like how far can I run from myself?
We've all been
It's
there. However, you
100%.
medicate. You self medicate. That's not going to solve the problem.
100%. 100%. So,
Yep.
Ron, bring us all home. Is there something you want to leave us with? We've got a lot of great nuggets here. Is there something you want to leave us with at the end here?
No, I just appreciate you reaching out to me. I appreciate the time. Appreciate everything you do to help me and others. What a great way to allow other people to tell their stories on your podcast. And you're doing a great job. And I just appreciate you as a friend. And we say we created this tribe. It's going to make us all great. And you're just part of the tribe. And thanks for everything you do.
That's very kind of you. Thank you so much, Ron. If people want to learn more about you or your story or want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Oh, best way you can find me. You can go to Amazon if you want. You can find me out there. I got a book out right now, Me and My Best Friend by Ron Cox. Or you can always just shoot me an email. It's ron.cox@kcnllc.com.
Say it one more time for us.
It's my name, ron.cox@kcnllc.com.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Ron, for being here. I know you're out and about, and I took a minute to share all this with us. I definitely got a lot out of it, and I'm sure our listeners will too. Thanks so much for being here.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the time.